Okay, good morning, happy Saturday, happy Lunar New Year, and I am so excited to be starting these live monthly sessions with you again. It's been a while, but we are just going to pick up where we left off and continue forward because it's all about just getting back on the horse and finding that momentum. So, welcome to those in the live chat. And if you're watching this on the replay, thank you. We are going to talk about flourishing today. I'm just going to jump right into it because I know your time is valuable. Mine is super precious, so let's make the most of it. So I have here, you might be not sure what is going on, but if you recognize this is an attempt at flourishing, but I'm going to sort of open your eyes to how to make these flourishes better, and we'll talk about what they are, like why, and how, the why and the how behind flourishing. Okay, so for starters, what is flourishing? I'll just have this kind of as an example. I don't have too many, I do have a couple of flourishes here, but what flourishing is it's an extension of our strokes. Okay, so normally you would write these letters the way that I've taught you before, right? Our basic strokes, our basic lowercase letters, but by extending some of these strokes, we get this beautiful, tasteful addition to our letters, and so that is the goal. Okay. You might have heard me say this, whether it's in the online course or in a workshop, that we don't want the flourishes to overpower what we are reading. We want to think of them as, my favorite analogy, the garnish to our entree. So if we made our flourishes too heavy or too crazy or something, we would make this not readable, and that's not the goal. We still want people to read our message, but we want to just add these tasteful touches. Okay. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. I'm hoping no issues. I don't see any comments that you can't hear me, but give me a quick thumbs up. Let me know where you're tuning in from. It's so good to see we have Bianca, Vicky, and Alita so far saying hi. I'm sure there's more of you out there. So thank you, thank you. Okay, so first thing to talk about, so we talked about what are flourishes. They're extensions of strokes. Typically, you're going to see them on, I'm going to use another paper because I want to preserve my beautiful Lunar New Year greeting there. Okay, we're not going to do that one. Let's see. So what I was saying is it's an extension of, let's cover this up. It's an extension of your strokes. So if a regular Y looks like this, right? We have our downstroke, we have our descending stem loop. Here, then a way to flourish this, and I'm going to use another color because that's helpful. We can bring this ending and extend it out this way. We could just end that way. We can extend it further and bring it in. Or we could do something fun and bring this a little bit lower and then come out and change directions. Okay. So those different examples would look like this. So that first one would be just extending out. We can extend even further and bring that stroke in. Or we can go out even way further, which is a really fun way to bring this stroke out here. So we're extending that last stroke, but a couple of things. So now I'm going to lead into our next point. So now you know that flourishes are extensions. Here's my chicken scratch. Extensions of strokes. Mostly ascenders and descenders, but you can do others also. And then some things to note about what you're seeing here is you want to think in ovals. Okay, so that's one of the keys. Oh, that's a check mark, not a V. Okay. Okay, so I don't see any comments, but I'm hoping everyone's good. Hearing me, seeing me okay? Okay, let's brighten this up too. It's been a while. I am like warming all the muscles up. I had to break out some cameras, but we are here. Okay, so oval, right? You see this oval? Here we're trying to form this oval, and then oval again. Okay, and we'll see some ways to what it looks like when you're not doing ovals. And then another concept is opening it up. When I first started doing flourishing, I did not open up my flourishes. It was very tight. I didn't realize that having more space on the inside was good. So all of this space here, we call this counter space. We want that space. When it's too tight, it's not breathing. The letters get really congested and it's just hard to read, okay? All right, and then we have one more tip that I want to share is writing 90 degrees. Okay, sorry, not writing, but keeping in mind the 90-degree intersection between your flourishes. So when you have a simple flourish like this, there's not too much to worry about, but actually we could use that example. So here's what I mean. Look at this Y compared to this Y. Look at the angle here. Okay, so it's really getting kind of mathematical. You know how technical I like to get and study. So in this Y, look at the angle that this stroke creates. Okay, it's really out here. So this angle is very wide, whereas this one, it's almost at a T. It's a little bit of a curve, but these angles that are created are much closer to 90 degrees than these angles, because here you have a really wide one, you have a really narrow, very tiny angle. This one happens to kind of look 90 degrees and 90 degrees, but it's these two here. So do you see the difference that it draws your eye to? It just looks better when we open up, and the 90-degree concept was a very helpful one for me because I knew I had to open up the space, but also applying 90 degrees is important because you could pretty much open up the space but still have very narrow angles. Okay, or you could have 90-degree angles but still not open up the space. Okay, so I hope that's making sense. Sorry, I have to plug in my laptop because it is just already losing its battery. Okay, so does that make sense so far? So let's look at our examples here. So I tried to do like a do this, not that series, okay? And some of the issues with doing kind of things with your flourishes that don't make it readable or tasteful is you compromise readability, meaning you just can't read it. It's too hard to read, or it just doesn't look balanced. And it also, like I was saying earlier, it's too congested, or just can also communicate the wrong letter. Like this letter, this first one here is supposed to be a Y, and I feel like I lose the shape of the Y. Like it almost looks like an L, or I don't know what's going on. Of course, these letters are standalone, so when they're with a whole word, it's easier, but let's just kind of break this down. Okay, so the issue here is we're not doing our 90-degree angles. This one's really narrow here. Okay, so let's try to open up this space. You kind of saw this already because we were just doing that, but I'll just do it here. So here's my basic Y. I'm going to bring up that stroke and finish that oval. That's just my basic letter Y. And then I'm going to bring this out further, okay? Because what that'll do is open up the space and give me those 90-degree angles. Okay, lots of open space, and we can see our ovals. Okay, for this next one, I wanted to demonstrate that, remember this one that we did here, this last one? So here I really opened up and extended my flourishes, whereas here they're so tight, okay? And I don't see ovals. I mean, I kind of see ovals this way, but look what happens when I open it up even more. So we're going to open up this space, then I'm going to extend this way, and then I'm going to make this oval more horizontal, okay? We'll dive in a future lesson into like the differences between horizontal and vertical ovals, because there are different ways to incorporate them, okay? But for now, just kind of keep in mind, as long as I'm relatively keeping that oval shape, that open space, look at this open space compared to, well, these are kind of open, but I think on this one, the takeaway is these angles versus these angles, okay? But as a function of opening up those angles and making them more 90 degrees, you do get more open space. That's just kind of hand in hand. Okay, moving on for the letter T here. So this is one of my favorite ways to flourish. It's these crossbars on our letter T's because they're just so much fun. You can do all kinds of things. With so much space above, we could essentially bring our flourish in all kinds of directions. The issue with this one here is, again, the angle and just not opening up the space, okay? So check out this version instead. So here's my T, and then I'm going to I get a little bit, as much as I'm very conservative and traditional with my writing, I do like to go a little bit bigger on my T's. Okay, so here's one way. You can open up the crossbar and then create an oval here. So this oval is much more open than this circular shape. Okay. Another way we could do the crossbar, and I'm getting this idea from Erica from EP Lettering. She brings that stroke all the way around. I love that when she does that. So that's a fun way to cross your T. When I was getting really excited when I was first learning all about this, I even would cross both of them, but I don't know if I would still do that. Oh, see, I don't even know where I'm going. Okay. Cross this one and kind of just bring that one up. I don't really love it anymore. I don't know what I did before, but it was basically trying to get too crazy with all the flourishes. As always, less is more, so keep that in mind. Okay, let's move on from that one. Okay, this A, same concept. You can kind of see similarities, right, in the issue with this flourish and this flourish, the first one with the Y. So with this A, we want to open up that flourish. So yes, I used to not think you could flourish an A because there's not really an ascent, like a descender, but again, flourishes are extending our stroke, so we can extend that bottom stroke and bring it back in, okay? Or you could just, oh, you know, another fun way, this is just opening up so much more. So this is bringing the extension above the A. Of course, you want to be conscious of what letters. This is helpful when the last letter in the word ends in A. Or you can change direction down below here. But see how I'm trying to keep the space open, okay? What we don't want to do is try to flourish, but then we're keeping them tight and we're not sure what's going on. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. But we just don't want these tiny spaces. There is no 90 degrees at all. I mean, they're just either really, really big angles or really narrow angles, okay? So we just want to be careful of that. And then again, you can see the oval shapes here. We have an oval in here, ovals here. Here's a vertical oval. Okay, so that is that example. Okay, next one is, this is a capital stem. So I know we haven't talked too much about capitals, but here's an example of like the letter F in what I showed you earlier. So this stem is what we're focusing on, okay? So the issue with this here is that, again, these flourishes are so dinky and tiny. My friend Nina says it's like going to prom. You don't want to, I forgot how she said it, was so cute. She said, we don't want tiny little hands and decorations, and we're going to prom, so we want it to be big and noticeable, but still tasteful. Okay, so let's see, prom hands. Okay, so here's my capital stem, and I'm going to open this up, and first we could just end here. We can bring it around. Actually, let's see. There we go. I feel like it got kind of heavy down here, so I kind of lifted the ending of that stroke here to be a little bit higher above the baseline. Or another favorite I've been loving is keeping inside. But what makes this flourish work, okay, let me do it again. Okay, what makes this flourish work, and Suzanne Cunningham is really good at explaining this, is the spacing away from the strokes themselves. So that falls in line with our idea of keeping things open. Okay, look at the A that I had up here previously. It's just so tight. There's like no open space. Okay, so that's what makes this one work. Also, what makes it work is keeping the oval shapes, right? So I have a tiny oval, I have a larger oval here. Okay, and then last but not least, I have a smaller oval out here. But you know what? These kind of go hand in hand. This version is essentially this version. Okay, it was just a different location of that flourish. So if we're going to go out there, we could extend out there and then continue with your crossbar on top. If it's a T, if it's an F, you want to signify that with that crossbar. Okay, so I hope there aren't technical issues on my end. I don't see any additional comments. Maybe you guys got quiet or got into something else, so that's okay. I just hope that everything's coming through on your end, that you can see me, hear me, and that everything's making sense. So if you are there, please let me know. It would be great to hear from you. If not, I'll just trust you could see this. And that's all I have for today. It's a quick, short lesson, but I'm hoping it was a good intro back into our monthly trainings. And I wanted to give you something really highly requested and really helpful for you, because a lot of you have kicked butt in my course or my workshop, and it's that next level. And how do I refine my strokes? Okay. So keep this in mind when you're doing your work. I'd love to hear from you if this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments. If it's not, if you're watching this on the replay, you could definitely give me a comment on what you thought of today's lesson. I'm gonna hop back on at the last Saturday of every month, so you can expect to see me. Send out a note, and as always, you can go to the training page for all of the replays. Okay, so. We'll see you again on Saturday. Let's see. What date is that? Saturday, February. I cannot believe it's already February. 29th. Oh, that might be hard to do, because we may or may not be going to Disneyland. Okay, this one is we're gonna reschedule this one already. Look at me. Let's start live training, and now we're gonna reschedule one. So let's put to be determined. Okay, let's just say February's workshop training is gonna be to be determined. I'm sorry, guys. We might do it earlier that week, which some of you might be happy, because I know not everyone can make the Saturday morning time. So maybe we'll do a weeknight. Okay. All right. Let me check. Avril says, hi Avril, could you demo flourishing off the bottom of a letter like an R or H? I struggle with getting a good transition from the thick downstroke to the thin flourish line. Oh, great suggestion. So similar to like the letter I here, the letter R and H end with this downward stroke. Okay, so it's not exactly it's not an ascender or descender. So what we would do there is, so she's asking about the letter R or the letter H. Okay, so if a word ended in R, like far, because you know you're gonna flourish the word far. And your question was, or you said getting a good transition from thick to thin. Okay, so let's do a regular, like I like to start with like how we would do it without flourishing. Okay, so that's how it is without flourishing. But with adding flourishing, you're going to keep the downstroke here, but the minute you get closer to the baseline, I would start lessening my pressure and then keep the rest of it light. Okay, at the most, if you want to add thickness, I would add it a little bit on my downward stroke here, but keep the rest of it light. Okay, I forgot to mention in today's lesson, but most of you have seen this, the concept of light and light is okay. Light and a light stroke and a heavy stroke are okay, but we don't want heavy and heavy. See that? Oh, let's cross that off. Does that make sense? So we want light crossing light or light crossing heavy, but we don't want heavy and heavy. So let's see what that looks like. So here's my letter R. Thick stroke, but it's going to loosen up right away. And then you'll see that the heavy stroke I tried to keep just with the R. I don't want to extend that downstroke, that heavy, sorry, not the downstroke, the heavy part. I don't want to extend that thickness with the flourish necessarily. I'm sure there might be some exceptions, but for the most part, you want to maintain the letter R. And while we're on this concept, one thing I want to point out is being careful of bringing that downstroke on the R. So normally we would come back down, right, this way. Be careful of coming out like this, because I've seen that happen. And now you just kind of made too much space for this R that I can't really read it. Okay, so really focus on keeping the favorite word from Nina, integrity of the letter, and then the flourish is just adding on. Okay, so for your second letter, H, I think you're talking about, good. So for H, there's different ways to do the H. So you could take this concept of the R and apply that. So you can apply that, oops, that was a little too not smooth. You can apply that methodology, that flourish, or if you want to flourish the top of the H, which I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking, then a good idea is to create the stem first and then finish your H. And then you're going to come back in and start a little bit below that line, but bring back your pen up and above, and you can flourish this way. You could just keep that extension here. You can bring it back out. This is like this is like the upside down version of the Y. Or you can let's do another color. Or you can extend that stroke out here. And then this is like a classic Young Hay flourish to bring that inside there. Okay, so what those look like, let's do those different examples. So you would make your stem first. Very careful to keep this thin, and then add your heaviness as, per usual. Then you can come back in. Flourish there. You could flourish out here. I err on the side of like being more lighter than adding heaviness, but if you did add some heaviness, I would add it here, but that's it, because everything else you're going upward. So just be careful of making it too heavy. Keep everything else light. Okay, good question. Thanks for asking, and I hope that was helpful. I'll send an email about next month's training. I'll update the website as soon as I can pick a date, so you can check on that. It's at piecescalligraphy.com/student trainings. And as always, you can email me back. That's how I got a lot of your requests for flourishes. Just email me directly to that, message, or send me a note. I would love to hear from you. Have a great weekend, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hi, Susan. And I will see you guys next month. Take care. Have a great weekend. And if you get to try some of this, definitely tag me. Send me a photo. I love seeing your work. I don't always get to reply, but I do see them, I promise. And if you have a question, let me know so we can continue this conversation of flourishing and what we could do with it. Okay, bye guys.